Hi everyone, we're doing our on-field driver tier list. Now drivers are units that are on field the majority of the time, but they also exist to drive the reactions of your sub DPS. Now that doesn't mean these units don't do poor damage. They actually tend to do quite a bit of damage, but that your sub DPSs are contributing quite as much. The difference between a driver and an on-field hyper carry is that hyper carries either have more inbuilt scaling to them or they scale better with horizontal investments. In that, you really want to build the team around them. And then also, certain hyper carries kind of require more investment to come online, but might have higher ceilings. That's not to say that some of the units here aren't incredibly strong because they very, very much are. We have some great units in our driver tier list. That said, um, some of these can also come in and be sub DPSs. And so all these lines are quite blurry. But I think that, you know, this is honestly just kind of my opinion of where I'd put them. But, um, you might be able to run them slightly different on your account. Now, I would say that you'll notice the weakest tier is gone because none of these characters are weak. Even, say, Fremine, who is one of the least used. I've done Abyss 11 with Fremine, say like Venti, Fischl, Yelan, and done like Shatter, um, Superconduct team, and it worked, and he was good. Like, even some of the weaker units here are just plain good. So we don't really need a weak tier list. That said, I think the hyper carry category tends to have higher ceilings, but requires more investment. Let's go on. D-Luke was our best on-fielder in 1.0. He's actually still pretty good, but he's just outscaled by other Pyro DPSers. Specifically, he got power crept by Hu Tao, in my opinion. Claymores also don't have as many options as polearms, though I think now that Dea's weapon, Beacon of the Reed Sea, is on the new banner, that weapon is probably best in slot for him and will make him a little bit stronger. However, I think that one of the reasons Claymores don't make great hyper carries is because they're just slow in terms of their attack speed. That said, D-Luke does not require a lot to come online. He has a crit ascension stat, so give him a crit damage circlet, some decent artifacts, a decent weapon. He'll carry you very hard through the early game. He's still really strong. I just think his ceiling's not as high as the other options, so I think he's really quite good. Razor's electro and physical damage is not in a great place. But that said, I think that he's very similar to D-Luke. He will have plenty of crit, especially if you have cryo resonance. Superconduct will naturally debuff the enemies. So you give him a decent weapon, some decent artifacts, and he'll do a lot of damage with no help. He's a very strong early game character, so don't make you think that he's weak. He still does good damage, but I think here these tiers are closer together than other units. There's just not really a low floor here, but you'll have better options than Razor. Now his best option is to be Hyper Bloom Driver because Dendro reactions are so strong. Moving on, we have Keqing. And Keqing, one of my favorite characters, was in a tough place. But then Dendro came out, and she's become really good aggravate DPS. The little cuts, all the little instances she does are amplified by aggravate, and so Now she's actually quite great. You can run like Kinching, Fischl, Nahida, Kazuha as a team I like, and it blows stuff up. It does tons of damage. That said, there are um, stronger Electro Hyper carries, but don't think Kaching's weak. Kaching's very good. I think right now she's better than D-Luke at the moment. Klee, our first um, 5-star limited character, actually does a lot of damage. She has incredible pyro application at higher constellations. If you really love Klee, she can be a good sub DPS. But to me, I think her playstyle is just very awkward. I'm not that great at the Klee stutter step. And she got out of scaled again when Hu Tao came out. So while Klee is also one of my favorite characters, I think she's amazing, but I find her very hard to use, and she doesn't give out as much damage. Tartaglia, he is always been the core of the international team comp, and so for those who don't know, that's Bennett, Xiangling, Kazuha, Child, and because of that comp, he's incredible in it. He does tons of damage. He's really, really, really strong in that situation. So I think I have to put him in busted tier. My account hasn't needed him. I think he requires some skill and a decent amount of investment to come online, but he's good. Ganyu, in terms of her raw power, she's very, very strong. I don't think she makes as good of a hyper carry as, say, Ayaka, but her coverage is supreme. You can also run her as a sub DPS. You can also run her in melt teams, so she's pretty flexible. It's just her base stats and her base damage are so high that if you build her even a little bit, she'll be raining huge crits on people. So Ganyu's incredibly strong. Yanfei, it's kind of how many constellations do you have on her? She is another Pyro DPS. She acts kind of similar to D-Luke and Klee. I think that her power level initially seemed low, but a C6 Yanfei has just as much power, if not more, than Klee or D-Luke. She's quite strong in that matter. I think her weakness is that she's a catalyst, so her charge attacks use up a lot of stamina, and that's kind of obnoxious. Plus, they lock you in place. However, conversely, she has incredibly long range, so she can be valid in overload or, say, vape comps without having to be close to the enemy. Yoimiya just got her. Again, I love Yoimiya, one of my favorite characters. Excellent personality. But her weakness is she's single target normal attack. So she'll never match any AoE. In those single target situations, she's pretty good. But I think that Hu Tao just does more damage than her. So that's why she's not in the meta. But specifically against flying enemies, she's really quite good in those situations. Arcblight Drakes, Ruin Drakes, she's excellent. Again, I wish I could place her higher, but I really can't. Moving on, we have Ayato. Ayato, it's hard to know whether he's an on-fielder or a sub-DPS. His burst has incredible coverage. His skill counts as normal attack, so it's kind of interesting. And as a Hydro driver, he's always going to have a place in the meta. That said, I don't think he's particularly strong. I don't think he's weak at all. I think he's pretty strong, but there's always a better option to play as your on-fielder. That's just my opinion. Also, he reminds me too much of Otto from HI3. We have Hazo, and I think Hazo's underappreciated. Hazo is an Animo driver, and his playstyle is super fun. He does kick flips and one punch meme stuff. I actually really, really like this character. Um, Plus, he applies Viridescent Shred all on his own if you run him with that, or you can run him with the. There's a Desert Palace set. I forget the exact name because he's the only one who uses it. But super fun character. I don't think he maximizes damage, but when I use Hazo, I always really, really like him. That said, I don't think he's quite as strong as the premium characters. Tignari is what is it? Is a spread driver. I know he's really quite good. Um, I don't have one. His charge attack playstyle looks super fun, but I can't really have any negative about him. I don't think he's at the same level as these two, but he's a very good unit. Okay, when we get to Kave, Kave is specifically a Bloom driver, right? So he's a Forest Star driver, which is already kind of a knock against him, but specifically for Bloom teams because he has Bloom immunity, which is very nice, but he's a Claymore, so his attacks are slow. So I don't know. That said, he's very niche, and maybe he's good in those specific situations, but I have to be like running a Nilo Bloom with a Kave driver and not a Hyper Bloom team. So it's a very, very narrow use case. Lenny's a very strong mono pyro DPS. I think he's good. His playstyle's fun. Really cool character. I don't think he's as strong as the 1.2 characters. I think Ganyu and Tartagos are just better. That said, Lenny's still good. If you like him, you can run him in mono pyro. Fremine, he's essentially a shatter DPS, physical shatter DPS. I think that he's pretty solid at that. I mean, the problem is that physical claymores aren't that good. And if you wanted to play a physical claymore, Eula would be better and more damage. Playstyle is actually really quite cool. You can kind of run a hybrid. He does a good amount of cryo too. So while really cool character design, he's just being a physical claymore shadow DPS. What he is puts him at a lower tier. The only way he could be good is if his numbers were really high, and they're not. Nuvolette, Mono Hydro, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, whatever. He is completely busted. One of the strongest characters in the game. There are people who clear Abyss 12 with Nuvolette solo. He's completely meta-defining. He's crazy good. Wriothesley. Wriothesley as a unit is really quite solid. I don't think I have any issues with him. His playstyle is super fun. But I think his main use is he's a freeze DPS. Can't really run melt with him, so he has to run freeze DPS. And Ayaka is just him but better. So here, still a premium character, still good. Navia, again, Navia does a lot of damage. She's a cool character, but she's Geo Claymore. I think her ammo situation is really interesting, really fun playstyle with her skill. I think that I don't think she's that much different in power level for Ito. I do think she comes online a little easier, and it's a different playstyle, personally. She's a attack scaler, he's a defense scaler, so that changes all the synergies. That said, I think that her inability to access melt or vape, just like being Geo, makes her weaker, which is sad, but also the reality of the Genshin we live in. So that's pretty short. That's our driver power tier list, and you can see you have a lot of options, and most of them are good. And I wouldn't even say these 4-star options down here, these weaker ones, they're good too. And it's no coincidence that the strongest are premium 5 stars. I think when it comes to power scaling, especially since 1.0, Hoyle learned to make the premium characters stronger, but if you have a C60 on Faye, you'll be pleasantly surprised. Okay, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you.